Hi everyone, it's Monica and happy Valentine's Day. Well, today I'm excited to be participating in the Hearts and Flowers Valentine's Day video hop. And I'm participating with a few friends and I'm going to be creating a card today. Well, actually a couple of cards using a really fun heart stencil along with these great colors from scrapbook.com. Now the colors that I'm going to be working with today are Candy Shop Pink, Cardinal Red, I'm going to be using the Parisian purple, and then I'm also going to be using the embossing clear ink. The stencil is from STAMPlorations, and while I could have easily used that cardstock that I shared with you a few minutes ago that had the hearts, I wanted to show you how to create some backgrounds using some of these stamps from scrapbook.com. Now, one of the nice things about creating your own background is you're able to blend colors. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be blending the pink that I'm showing you now along with that purple. And I'm going to be creating just a fun, whimsical background using this stencil. The blending tool that I'm using is from scrapbook.com as well. And these are the domed foam pads that fit perfectly onto your blending tool. And as you can see, I'm able to just add this pink ink perfectly. Now, of course, the darker that you go, or the more ink that you use, the darker it's going to be. So you can decide if you want it to be just a subtle light pink or a more dark, vibrant pink. And then I'm going to go in with my purple, and I'm going to go ahead and ink over the pink a little bit and just kind of blend my inks to create a really nice background. Now, the two cards that I'm going to be creating today there's going to be two Valentine's Day cards. And one is going to be more towards a friend, and this is the one that I'm working on right here. I mean, who's to say you can't give a Valentine's Day card to a girlfriend of yours? And that's really what I'm going to do on this particular one. It's going to be more feminine. It's not going to be too lovey-dovey. It's just going to be a nice background of hearts along with a great sentiment for a friend. Now, while I've used the scrapbook.com inks before, I've never actually blended them before, so this is really a trial test for me as well. I did spritz the ink with some water, and now I'm dabbing it up. Now, the cardstock that I'm using is watercolor cardstock because I knew I was going to be adding some water to it, but you can certainly blend these on regular cardstock if you're not going to be adding any water to it. Now, because I added the water, I did go ahead and get out my heating tool, and I'm going to just give it a once over to make sure my cardstock is nice and dry. Now, the next background that I'm going to create, I'm going to be using the clear ink embossing ink from scrapbook.com, and I wanted to create some sort of a resist, and that's why I decided to add clear embossing powder to this card, and then I'm going to add the Cardinal Red ink to outline my hearts. I really felt that the Cardinal ink was a little bit too dark for a complete heart background, and that's where I got the idea to use the embossing ink. Also, I wanted to test out my pad because this is an ink pad that I just got, and I wanted to see how it worked as far as a tool for using my embossing powders. Now, as you saw, I did use not only the sponge, but I also just kind of grabbed the ink pad and just smushed it all over the place. And now I'm going to go ahead and take some of my clear embossing powder and add it to my cardstock. Now, remember, you're not going to be able to see the ink, obviously, because it is clear embossing ink. But you will be able to see it close up. You'll be able to see the shadows of the hearts through the little specks of embossing powder. And then once I get my embossing powder all added, I'm going to go ahead and use my heating tool to set the embossing powder, and that way it will create a nice resist for that red Cardinal ink. All right, so once the embossing ink was nice and dry, then I went ahead and took my blending tool once again, and I just dipped it right into that Cardinal Red. And now I'm going to go ahead and add it to the watercolor cardstock. And as you can see, the hearts have a really nice resist. So I'm just adding all of this ink all around. And you can see at the edge where it kind of clumps up, and that's probably because I did take the embossing ink right to the cardstock. So if you want to be a little bit more precise, you probably don't want to do that. But if you've watched some of my videos before, you know I am kind of a grungy crafter, and I really didn't mind that. In fact, I really liked the look because I thought it made it look a little bit more grungy without even having to try. And then once I was happy with the coverage, then I went ahead and took a rag that I had and I just kind of did a once over to get some of that ink off where the embossing resist was. And as you can see now, I have really two similar backgrounds, but certainly uniquely different. Now, typically when I am using a stencil, I do have it a little bit bigger than my final result, and this is so I can trim it and have a more organic background. I'm able to trim off a little bit of that red on the edge, but still have some of that grunge look, just not as much as when I had started out. And now that I have it trimmed down, then I'm ready to go ahead and use my distressing tool to edge up the sides of the cardstock. Now, one thing that I really like about the watercolor cardstock is because it is a little bit thicker, this tool that I'm using really frays it nice, and I have really nice texture when I use it against watercolor cardstock. So that was a bonus in being able to use this thicker cardstock. And then once I was finished using this distresser, I did want to add a little bit more color to the edge just to give it a little bit more boldness. And this is where I'm going to use some of my distress crayons. Now, for those of you that have never used distress crayons, these are great for edging your cardstock, especially again with the watercolor cardstock because it's a little bit thicker and it really grabs that crayon. So I'm just taking my black soot and I'm edging it along the edge, and then I'm also using my fingers to kind of spread it around. Now, for those of you that aren't necessarily a grungy crafter, this may not be the best technique for you. And you might want to go a little bit more with a subtle look, and that's where I use the pink for the background. It's not as bold as the dark, but it still is a nice color for the edge. And then once I was happy with both of those cardstock pieces, then I went ahead and took my glue and I'm going to add it to some black cardstock just to frame it. Okay, so now that I have my background, now it's time to work on our focal points. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I knew that I wanted to create more of a Valentine's Day card for, a loved one. And then I also wanted to create a friend one. And then I also wanted to use these tiny words stamp set that I just got from Holtz. So I came up with the idea of creating kind of like a photo booth card where I can create some little Polaroid frames to use those tiny words. Now, the Polaroid frames I created just using some white cardstock and a square punch. But you don't necessarily have to just use white cardstock. You can use something with some background, and then you can still create the type of a Polaroid frame using your square punch. Now, when you do use cardstock, of course, you're not going to be able to necessarily add some stamped words because you're already going to have the decorative cardstock in the background, but I am going to show you how you can still add some fun words. Now, I am a sucker for Holtz's Ideaology line. I love his Ideaology, and I purchased these Photobooth images a while back, and I haven't used them, so I thought this was the perfect time to go ahead and pull them out of my Ideaology drawer and use those for my Valentine's Day cards. And as you can see, I've got some really fun characters here. Not only do I have couples, but I have some friends. I also have some little kids into the set. So I have a feeling I'm going to be creating some more little Polaroids because I really like the result that I got using his photo booth images. All right, so once I picked out the images that I wanted to use, I wanted to go ahead and age up my little tiny Polaroid frames, and I'm using antique linen, and then for the inside of the frame as well as the outside of the frame, I'm going to be using some black soot. Now, the tool that I'm using to add my ink are the little finger daubers from scrapbook.com, and I have to say I love these because I have them in a stackable container that I have right by my workstation, and I'm able to pull them out whenever I need to add just a little bit of ink. Sometimes the big daubers are just a little bit big, and as you can see, they are perfect working on little pieces of paper like I am doing here. So I don't typically recommend product or necessarily say you have to have this, but if you do like to edge up your pieces of paper, if you like to use distress inks to add color to some of your smaller items, these little daubers are perfect. And as you can see, I have them nicely stacked in its container, and then I created little labels so I knew which colors went with which blending tool. I love them. They're perfect. And I'm really happy that I invested in this little piece of equipment, or I should say a tool, because it really has made my life a lot easier. All right, so once I have my little Polaroids inked up, then I'm going to go ahead and add some glue and I'm going to frame my pictures. And when you are picking out your picture, you do have to kind of take into consideration the frame. Some of the photos, the faces were a little bit too big and they didn't really frame up nicely. So you just want to make sure that you do kind of pick a picture that frames nicely in these little Polaroids. So I'm going to go ahead and add my glue, put them over my pictures, and then once they're completely dry, then I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess from the frame. All right, so now we have 3 pictures, and we're going to go ahead and start putting together our card. Now for the friendship card, like I said, I ended up creating a mini Polaroid that already had some words on it, so I probably wasn't going to be able to actually add some stamped words. So I just pulled out some of my stickers that had words, and these were from the metallic brand from Holtz. So if you don't have those, you could easily stamp onto some white cardstock, of course, and create your own little stickers. But I already did have the metallic stickers, and they really worked well because they were small enough words that they fit perfectly onto these little Polaroid images. All right, so when I reached into my Ideaology drawer to pull out my metallic stickers, I also saw these little remnant rubs that were actually inside of the packaging for my metallic stickers. So I decided, hey, since I'm pulling out the package, why don't I use those as well? A lot of times when I am creating my cards, I'm not really sure exactly what I'm going to be using. I have a general idea of my layout. Like I knew I wanted to use the stencil heart background, and I wanted to use the tiny stamps, but I didn't necessarily know exactly what I was going to do. I also knew that I wanted to use the Polaroid idea. So once I kind of had all my items out, I just kind of started adding some of the remnant rubs to add more interest. Now, numbers are always great to add interest. I mean, you can't go wrong with numbers, and they don't even necessarily have to mean anything. So I just went ahead and I just am using what I have in my stash. Now, I did actually, when I was, after I added this number set, I had those bigger numbers, and as you can see, the 1 and the 4 is cut out because I used it for another Valentine's Day card that's going to that I already shared with you. Actually, I'm trying to think when I'm going to post it, but I created a Valentine's Day card where I used the 1 and the 4, so it's missing from the bigger numbers. So I had to kind of think what I wanted to do. Did I want to go ahead and add the numbers and just not have the 1 and the 4? And then when I saw the combination of 5, 6, 7, 8, it reminded me of Laverne and Shirley. For those of you that remember Laverne and Shirley, they had an intro that started out 5, 6, 7, 8. And I thought, hey, why don't I go ahead and add that? I mean, this is a friendship card anyway. So that was the idea around using the 5, 6, 7, 8. And then, again, I just kind of added, I'm using my stylus tool. And then I added a tiny, I think it's a ruler at the bottom, to, again, just finish off the card. Okay, so I went ahead and finished adding the numbers, and then again I added the small strip of the remnant rub at the bottom, added some glue to my little Polaroid picture, and that pretty much was it for this particular card. And then I'm going to go ahead and work on the other card, which is more of a romantic card. Now remember, this type of a design doesn't necessarily have to be just for Valentine's Day. Since today is Valentine's Day, I did decide to go ahead and create a Valentine theme on the red and the white hearts. But the friendship one doesn't necessarily have to be a Valentine's Day theme. You can easily turn this into a birthday card, a friendship card, thank you card. There's a lot of ways you can go with this. Just overall a celebration of friendship. All right, so let's go ahead and work on the second card here. Now, this particular one is going to be more focused towards a loved one, maybe a husband or a sweetheart, and that's kind of the theme I'm going to go with here. Now, these two Polaroids, I wanted to go ahead and type or add something to the bottom as a little sentiment, kind of like a memory or something that you would maybe type on a Polaroid after you have them printed out. Now you're going to get lots of sentiments on this tiny word stamp set, and you can use it intact as a complete background, or you can separate the words as I'm doing for this here. And what I really like about this set is the fonts are different. While this one shows more like a typewriter font, some of the other fonts are all caps, different types of font. So you have lots of choices here. It really is a great stamp because, like I said, not only can you use them individually, but you can use it as a whole to create a background. And I'll certainly be creating a few more videos using this stamp set to give you some ideas on how you can use it as well. So on this particular Polaroid, I'm using the phrase that says best day ever. And just think of, it as if you were going to a carnival or some sort of a circus and you decided to go into a photo booth and take some pictures with a friend or a loved one. It certainly could be a best day ever. So I thought it was a great sentiment for these little Polaroids. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the video hop. You're going to find the link to the next video below in the description box. And all you need to do is click on the link and head over to the next YouTube channel. Now, some of us are doing giveaways, and I will be doing a giveaway as well. So make sure that you listen for any of the rules because each channel is going to be sponsoring their own giveaway. For me, you're going to need to leave a comment below and let me know what kind of traditions or if you do anything for Valentine's Day. And then I also want to make sure that you are subscribed to my channel, so be sure to hit that subscribe button. Now, I am giving away also over in my shop these little endearments. It's a sheet like the one that says Be Mine. So if you do want to get a freebie over in my shop, be sure and check for that link below as well. All right, everybody, I hope everybody enjoys the hop and has a wonderful Valentine's Day. We'll see you again next time.